Look like the cream of wheat man trying to avoid getting cooked, but he gonna fall in the fire. Now available in paperback at e-readers, Isis, Dark Incubus. The goddess next door gets enthralled in a romantic entanglement with an evil incubus in this all-new Isis series adventure. Get your copy of Isis, Dark Incubus in paperback and e-readers today. Better get the coleslaw, y'all, cause we're having us a barbecue. President-elect Donald Trump has said that he would consider pardoning New York Mayor Eric Adams if he is convicted of a federal crime as related to the bribery and corruption charges that he has been indicted for. Now, New York Mayor Eric Adams basically is in between a rock and a hard place as related to his political career after going out here and speaking against the Biden administration as related to the migrant crisis that has basically made life miserable for most people here in New York City. Now, back in 2022, New York Mayor Eric Adams thought that he could go out here and pull a finesse by going out here and looking to play a game of political chicken with Texas Governor Greg Abbott as he was looking to bus migrants up to New York City to challenge the unconstitutional sanctuary city laws that allow migrants to have asylum here in the state of New York. And as Eric Adams tried to play this game of political chicken with Greg Abbott, he thought he could go out here and virtue signal to everyone here in America that he was going to not be a racist like President Donald Trump and look to go out here and show how New York was supposed to be this melting pot of diversity and inclusion and open the doors of New York City to all of these migrants who entered the country illegally. And as he did this, he stood outside of the Port Authority bus terminal to introduce himself to these migrants and shake their hands and give them lots of things as related to facilitating their stay here in the city and basically open the door for them to get all of the city services as far back as 2022. Unfortunately, as early as March of 2023, this is where New York Mayor Eric Adams found himself in a place where he could no longer virtue signal because it was costing the city billions of dollars just to take care of 33,000 migrants, and most of New York's city services were completely overwhelmed by just a small number of migrants compared to the millions that Texas has to go out here and process every day. And with the entire narrative around the sanctuary city falling apart, this is where New York City Mayor Eric Adams started to look to do an about face as related to his virtue signaling. And as he was out here doing this about face, because his city was fiscally overwhelmed as related to its already strained budget due to deficits made by the de Blasio administration, Eric Adams started to get upset because he didn't see the covert contract being fulfilled by the federal government as related to the Biden administration, which said that it would go out here and take care of these migrants with federal funds. However, if Eric Adams was a critical thinker, he would have looked at the 2022 election before he virtue signaled and understood that all of the federal money had to go through Congress, which had been made red as related to its majority. So that meant that no money was going to be able to be allocated to the states for any care for any migrants, and we would basically be locked down in gridlock. But sadly, Eric Adams wasn't a critical thinker, and as he was out here chasing for clout with Joe Biden, the same way George Jefferson chased for clout with Mr. Whitendale on The Jefferson Show, he couldn't see that he was the punchline of a joke as related to that whole situation, and couldn't see he was the punchline of that joke because anybody who knew about the subtle politics transpiring around them understood that when it came to federal politics, again, funding goes through Congress, and if the Congress is red, there's no way you're going to get funding, especially for an unpopular idea like going out here and looking to get funding to pay to take care of people who entered the country illegally, red or blue, during a time when people basically had issues with migrants all throughout this country because most Americans were struggling. Most Americans were struggling to be able to pay their bills, and seeing their money being allocated to take care of people who entered the country illegally, that wasn't going to go through as related to the Congress. So Eric Adams' whole covert contract was never going to be fulfilled. And as he saw that his covert contract wasn't going to be fulfilled, this is where Eric Adams went out here and participated in political harry-carry by speaking against the Biden administration as he talked about how the migrant crisis was going to destroy New York City. However, there wouldn't have been a migrant crisis here in New York City had Eric Adams basically followed the constitutional law as related to the U.S. Constitution instead of trying to follow dysfunctional state laws that were established by people like Andrew Cuomo and Bill de Blasio, because the supremacy clause of the U.S. Constitution supersedes the dysfunctional sanctuary city law established by Andrew Cuomo and Mario Cuomo, and also superseded the law that said that Bill de Blasio and the city council established, saying that ICE couldn't get involved with people who were criminals who came into the country illegally. All these laws basically are unconstitutional under federal law, but Eric Adams, still looking to clout chase, went out here saying he was following the law until the law no longer benefited him. And sadly, as he went out here and tried to not follow the laws that didn't benefit him, he wound up violating one of the ultimate unwritten social rules of the law of white supremacy, and that is speaking against a white supremacist in Joe Biden. And as he looked to denounce Joe Biden for not looking to fund taking care of these migrants in these big cities, this is where he believes that he went out here and, again, after violating this law, wound up on the road to being investigated by the Biden DOJ and being investigated by the Biden DOJ, which led to the ultimate raids on many of his campaign finance workers and raids on many of the people who worked for his administration, and eventually the FBI raiding him, and this leading to a federal indictment on bribery charges, and this indictment on bribery and corruption charges basically hanging over Eric Adams' head, putting him in between a political rock and a hard place, that Kathy Hochul basically is now de facto running the city with Eric Adams as a figurehead, because they don't want Pookie or Jumaane Williams to become the next mayor, and leaving the city in a place of political turmoil, where Eric Adams is basically jammed up and looking to get the attention of another Mr. Whitendale in Donald Trump, one that has shown favor to him. But sadly, what's happening with Eric Adams is basically the definition of insanity, because he's still playing Candyland and holding up pink and blue cards as there is a game of political chess being played. And sadly, Eric Adams still doesn't understand the subtle politics transpiring around him. And since he doesn't understand the subtle politics transpiring around him, what's happening here with the cream of wheat man is he's trying to avoid the pot for getting cooked. Not understanding avoiding the pot for being cooked basically puts him in the fire as related to white supremacy. Now, what Eric Adams is trying to do right now is trying to finesse things so that he can basically avoid being prosecuted by the Blue Party by looking to get support and allegiance from the Red. But sadly, what he doesn't see is that both parties are a part of the same system of white supremacy, and both are a part of the same system of white supremacy, which basically is setting him up to be the punchline of a cruel joke. Because basically what Donald Trump is doing is playing his own game, where he's basically setting him up to be the punchline of a joke, as he's sitting there thinking that he's got this hope of being pardoned by Donald Trump, who's a part of the red part of white supremacy. But again, both parties, red and blue, are both anti-black, and what they're looking to do is jerk Eric Adams around, play with his feelings, tell him what he wants to hear. And again, Donald Trump basically is going through formalities as related to Eric Adams, because what he's looking to do is basically look to spite the Blue Party in saying that, oh, I will give a little bit of attention to this black bootlick. Give a little attention to this black bootlick who basically has no real political value. No, Eric Adams has next to no real political value because he's not somebody they can use as an asset because he's basically a broken tool at this point. And again, what does the red side of white supremacy need with a broken tool at this point? Again, critical question Eric Adams has not figured out as related to this whole situation because when it comes to white supremacy, again, when they have a tool and they break the tool so it cannot be used as a weapon against them. And when it comes to Eric Adams, he basically isn't a tool that they can use on the red side as related to New York City because his approval rating already is in the garbage and he's basically on the road to losing the primary, even though he can come out here talking about he's a red candidate and is so-called tough on crime. He's no Rudy Giuliani. And again, if Donald Trump is smart, he'll basically go out here and recruit his own candidate, a candidate he can go out here and sell to the people to be his representative of his agenda. Moreover, he can go out here and find an individual who is loyal to him, something Eric Adams clearly isn't. No, Eric Adams basically shows he has no loyalty because he's basically out here again shucking and jiving the same way he shucked and jived and swerved New Yorkers with the supporting Bill de Blasio's dysfunctional vaccine mandate on people working, which undermined New York's economy, kept 1 million people out of work, and kept billions of tax dollars out of New York City's coffers, all in order to clout chase, and again, did this to businesses except those that looked to pander to him, such as the owners of the Mets. Their athletes could go out here and avoid the vaccine mandate. When it came to every other working New Yorker, they weren't allowed that opportunity. And again, this bootlick is not loyal to anyone. And again, this is something Donald Trump should really look at. This man is not a loyal person and is not loyal to a Trump agenda. No, he's a black bootlick who's again like George Jefferson, basically again shucking and jiving. And this cream of wheat man basically shucks and jives. And again, as he shucks and jives, he thinks he can jive his way out of a game with white supremacy, but they were already 7 steps ahead of this dude. And since they're 7 steps ahead of this dude, they already see where they want to go. This is why you hear Donald Trump saying he may consider pardoning Eric Adams, but I don't think he wants to do that because that would optically alienate his base of white supremacists all throughout the country. 1. 2, it would alienate his base as related to the Red Party, because Eric Adams is no conservative. No, he's just a bootlick who goes from trying to play both sides, but will basically wind up playing himself, because the system of white supremacy doesn't play with black people. No, they just see them as tools they can use to get from point A to point B, and basically Eric Adams has run out of road, and what they're doing is stringing him along, making him believe that he still has a chance, makes him still believe that he has a chance when he had no chance at all. And he has no chance at all because, again, when it comes to white supremacy, they never value black bootlicks outside of what they can use them for. And once they finish using a bootlick as a tool, again, the tool gets broken. And what purpose is a broken tool to the system of white supremacy if it's broken on the left side? I mean, there's no fixing a broken tool. No, there's no use for Eric Adams, just like there's no use for Roland Martin at this point, or many of the other bootlicks that have been kicked out. Again, once white supremacy finishes with a tool, they break the tool. And again, Eric Adams is a broken tool trying to put crazy glue on himself, hoping that he can sell himself to Donald Trump, hoping that he can put some crazy glue on himself and some tape and say, I'm still a valuable tool. But if Joe Biden has no use for Eric Adams, then what use does Donald Trump have for Eric Adams? Critical question anybody who understands politics or business has to ask. I mean, once the tool is of no longer of use to one side, the other side really has no use for it outside of gassing this dude up, stringing him along, and then after he is convicted, basically letting the tool go to fall, because again, when it comes to Donald Trump, he has to think about the bigger picture, which is the 2022 midterms and maintaining power, and the optics of maintaining power basically as a higher value than dealing with the cream of wheat man who's already over the pot, about to be cooked. I mean, he doesn't want to wind up losing seats in the House or seats in the Senate when you've already fought to get this majority back. Why go out here and sacrifice that for a guy who basically already lost the 2025 mayor's election here in New York? I mean, any critical thinker can look at this whole situation with Eric Adams and see that Donald Trump is just basically going through the motions to peeve many of those in the blue party, peeve them and get them upset. But any of the smart players who look at the big picture, they can look at this cream of wheat man and see that the cream of wheat man is over the pot and is about to be cooked. And if he does get out of the pot, he's about to fall into the fire of white supremacy. And if he falls into the fire of white supremacy, there's nothing to stop him from getting burned at this point. Now, if you want to check out some of my books on the SJS Direct imprint and learn something about the subtle politics transpiring around you, you can pick up my novel, The Temptation of John Haynes, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find The Temptation of John Haynes at other online booksellers like Draft Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. Now, if you'd like to see me make more videos taking politicians or celebrities or anybody to the barbecue, you can drop a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.